Second. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me live. This is Yekemi Otaru. I'm the co-founding director at the Caru based in Aberdeen, Scotland. Today is a bit of a different live. You're probably used to be going live in the afternoon, UK time, around about 12 or 1 o'clock. But there's good reason for me going live later in the day today. So I'm going live with Dara Connolly, who I met on Clubhouse. She's a confidence coach, she's a TEDx speaker, and she's the author of the book Flip Your Fear. Really good to have you here. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Yekemi. I'm happy to be here.
So today we're going to have a really good conversation. I love the conversations around confidence and, being able to beat fear so that people can achieve the things that they want to achieve. But I know people don't sort of start life saying, I'm going to be a confidence coach. So it'd be good to know a little bit about, your background. So what were you doing before you decided to be a confidence coach?
Well, way back, I started after college as a scientist, and I was quite timid at the time. I didn't have much confidence, and I was frustrated because in corporate, I would get talked over a lot. In fact, I remember people stealing my ideas. That wasn't fun. And there was just be meeting after meeting where I'd try to interject or give some ideas, and I would just get interrupted, and I felt invisible, and it was really frustrating. And I struggled for a long time, and I had no idea confidence coach was on the radar. It kind of like slowly evolved into that. It was just over time realizing what I'm doing isn't working. And yeah, I had to kind of adjust.
Yeah. And was there a trigger point? Can you tell us a little, maybe an incident or something that happened that was really that trigger point for you?
Yeah, there definitely were incidents, plural. And the funny thing is that a lot of people don't know this about me, is that I am a black belt martial artist. I taught martial arts for a lot of years. So from the outside, wow, I can appear very confident, but at the inside, I still felt timid. I still felt I didn't have my voice. I didn't know how to speak up. I would get not bullied, but definitely bullied at work.
Yeah.
Workplace bullying was really what was happening. And there was one point, I remember I was working a sales job, and I loved this job. It was at a chocolate factory. It was like the dream job. And I got sick, and I was out for pneumonia for 10 days. Now, this is like crazy situation. I come back, and they laid me off, and it was not a proper layoff. I was a good sales employee. It didn't make sense. And they came up with some lame excuse, and it felt really unjust. And I probably had a lawsuit in there, but I didn't want to go through the trouble. So I was like, this isn't right. I felt like it was discrimination. I felt that could have been gender bias. It was just an opportunity where people who are more assertive and aggressive taking advantage of the timid person who they knew wasn't going to make a big fuss. And I was really frustrated. And that's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to start my own business. And I didn't know how that was going to look. I just kind of jumped in. I had a detached garage. We were living in Berkeley, and I turned that into a studio. And it was kind of funny. I would post, we called it posting. I would post paper, like posters on telephone poles, and I would teach women's empowerment out of this beautiful space that was my garage. And literally just started training and talking to neighborhood women like, does this happen to you? Do you get ignored and talked over, and do you feel invisible at work? And I was just slowly building this program that was in 2004 when that started.
Oh, wow. So that's 17 years. So that's 17 years ago.
Yeah, I started at the garage with 2-3 people. Then at one point, a few months in, it got so big, the police called me, and I thought they were calling me. I'll never forget this. The chief of police called me, and I thought I was in trouble. Like, oh, they must have heard all the people coming by and all this stuff I'm doing. I thought, this is it. I'm going to get shut down. What was funny was they were calling because they said, we heard about the great work you're doing in the community. We want to partner with you. What?
Oh, wow.
So that began a beautiful relationship with the police, where we'd go into schools and start teaching community people on assertiveness. And it was really just strange things started happening where I realized, okay, this is definitely a better path for me than being talked over at work. I can find my voice and learn to step into the fears that I had, and just the momentum kept going.
Yeah, it's so powerful because, women in particular do struggle with confidence and being talked over, but also men. Men also are affected by this. So I'm in total admiration for the work that you're doing. And when you look at the people you've been working with now over the last, it's almost a couple of decades now, what would you say is maybe one or two of the main things that kind of stand in their way? Because I think when it comes to confidence, people are maybe self-conscious, or there's something that they're worried about that is in the way. So what would you say is maybe the very common one or two things that you're finding?
Well, I think we get stuck in our own head because we're comparing ourselves to everybody else, and we think we have to look like them, sound like them, it has to be better. I'm not this person. So we start to like really have that confidence that we do have, that we're born with, starts to diminish, and we start comparing. It's a comparison trap. And then what happened for me on top of that was all the voices of what everybody said to me. Oh, you're the shy one, you're the quiet one, which just go on a loop. And it wasn't necessarily true, but if I thought about it enough and repeated it enough, it became reality, which was really sad. So we self-sabotage our own success. We self-sabotage our own potential because we start judging, and we start comparing, and we start listening to the negative feedback that's out there, whether it's from parents or teachers or coworkers, whoever, and we just start letting that sink in, when really we have to trust our inner guidance and believe in our ability.
Yeah. What you say is so powerful, because I believe that sometimes people in our lives that love us, that mean well, are maybe saying things to us, it could be, in our childhood or as young adults, that stay on, and if someone says something enough, then you start believing it. If people say, you're shy, or, you can't talk in front of people, you start repeating that, like, oh, I'm shy, I can't talk in front of people. And
Exactly.
it's those kind of words that just become self-fulfilling prophecies, and I think it's really powerful to be able to step back and say, well, hang on a second, just because this has been said to me all my life doesn't mean that it's true. And even if it is, I can change. I can be something else. And I remember talking to a couple of friends of mine a few years ago, and we're talking about the fact that sometimes you grow up a certain way and you're on a journey and you're changing, but the people in your life are afraid of you actually changing, because then you're a different person and you come against some resistance. And it's quite surprising how resistant people are when you start to become confident. They're like, I don't know you like that. You're changing, and they get scared, don't they?
They don't like it, because now they have to kind of change along too, or it puts the mirror on them of like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
I mean, it is scary because you're stepping out of your comfort zone. And my friend circle had to grow a little bit, and some family members weren't supportive, and it was really interesting when that happens, because you're evolving, and that's good. You want to evolve, and it's not like I'm better than you, you don't do it like that. It's like, come up with me. And some people don't want to. They want to stay where they're at, and that's where you start to outgrow certain circles, and that's definitely part of the process.
And it's part of life, isn't it? It's one of those things. My mom used to say, people get off the bus, they get on the bus, let them get off the bus when they want to get off the bus. So really, really interesting. So what I wanted to focus on for a moment is the book that you've written. So when did you write that book? It's called Flip Your Fear.
Yes.
You talk us through how you came to put that book together, and I'll put the link in the chat for everyone who's listening. But talk us through that book and how you came to write it.
Well, this is probably my most vulnerable story. Okay, so last year, middle of pandemic, I'm in California. My parents are on the East Coast, and my dad turns 80. And this, I don't know why, but it really hit me, like, he's 80. And you have to understand, my dad and I were not really that close because we both lived in fear. And that fear prevented us from being vulnerable and close and really sharing and having that deep connection that a father-daughter should have. So he turns 80, and I'm like, oh no, I'm running out of time. I have to do something special. So I decide, this is the thing. He's half deaf, right? So I can't just pick up the phone. I needed like a creative way. So I'm like, I'm going to write a book, but I don't just write. It's like, I could show you, it's all photographs, because I wanted to be easy for somebody who's older to read, right? And I'm just writing, and it's a book to thank him for being my dad, and talking about really just fear and how fear holds us back. Now, my intention was just to connect with him through this book. I didn't have this big grand master plan, but what happened was I remember laying in my bed and all of a sudden the word fear, I'm just thinking the word fear, F-E-A-R, and these letters start inverting on me. And it turns into R-A-E-F. And I'm like, wait, and I swear this was like downloaded to me. I know it sounds woo-woo, but R-A-E-F turned into a code. And I just wrote about it and I was like, I'm just going to put this in the book just for me and my dad. It was just something that I came up with. Now, I wasn't planning on sharing this with the world. I printed one book. The book was on my desk and I was waiting and waiting until the time I can go see him. I couldn't fly for forever. And so I presented it to him on Zoom and it just became this beautiful connection. There's pictures in it. You know, it was just a message from daughter to dad. But what's even crazier about the Flip Your Fear story is that after that, because I kind of felt like a hypocrite, I'm like, how can you write a book on fear if you're still afraid of everything, like literally? And so I'm like, well, it's time for me to prove to myself I'm not this, you know, baby on everything. So I said, well, what am I most afraid of? I'm afraid of speaking. I was like, okay, what does a speaker do? And first thing popped in my head was TED Talk. And I thought, now this is what's so crazy. Okay, you ready? I take a chance. I call up the local TED Talk that's in my town. And I just say, hey, I'm interested in your talk. And they say, great, what do you speak about? No, I don't speak about anything. I didn't really have an official speech. Like I was training women for years, but it was like workshops. It wasn't like me presentation style. I panic and I say, flip your fear. And that lands me 4 TED Talks. So I realized, oops, this is like, you know, it's just kind of silly how sometimes in life you're thinking of doing a message, just, you know, connection from one person to another person. It grows into something bigger. So clearly there was a reason for that book to be launched.
Yeah, it was timely, it was inspired, it was personal, it was emotional. I think those are the ingredients for, you know, success and opportunity, isn't it?
It was raw. It was really raw. It was like being as vulnerable you can get. And that was hard for me to do. And somehow that resonated with not just my dad, but apparently other people. And that was kind of cool.
Yeah, amazing. And you mentioned TED Talk. So people who are listening now or maybe listening later, Aberdeen has got a TEDx coming up at the end of July. And there might be people listening who are thinking about applying. If you are, tomorrow's a deadline. And I'm also speaking to myself as well. And if you have applied, it'll be great to get a little bit of, I guess, insight into what it's like to speak on the TED stage. And maybe a couple of tips, you know, for people that have got a story, an idea that is maybe inspiring, emotional, personal, like your story. How do they put that across in very limited time?
Well, you have to remember, okay, so for TED, their whole motto is an idea worth spreading. So you really have to have a new, innovative, never been heard before idea. And that's why for me, Flip Your Fear worked, because they're like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. So you can't just talk about, if I just said, oh, I'm a shy girl who now overcame fear, they'd be like, yeah, next. It has to be a different angle, right?
Yeah.
So for anyone who wants to apply, and I now coach people how to do this, right? And this is, I always say to people, if you have a great idea, and you probably do, you just don't realize it. Maybe it's some big life lesson that you've learned, or you've overcome some trauma and have this phenomenal story, and the world needs to hear it because you can help people, then let's get you on a TED stage, because a lot of people get so intimidated, like, but that's TED, I'm not ready. Look, they need speakers. So don't overwhelm yourself. It's just people. So you can do this. And I wasn't speaking at the time, so it's okay. In fact, if you're not a speaker, that actually is an advantage, because they want to help people that need a platform. So you have to have a good idea. You have to have some new way of looking at things. And if you watch enough TED Talks, you see a lot of variety on that. So think about, what is the idea that you want to share? And if you pitch it to them, focus on how it helps other people. And there's ways to do that. And it's not just, you know, me, here's what I came up with this. So for me, it was, I came up with this really cool acronym for flipping fear. I didn't know this was going to help people, but apparently it is helping people. And I'd love to tell your audience about it. Just try that approach, and that's it, and see if it's a fit. No, it's not. It's like looking for a job, right? A lot of times people get intimidated. Well, I didn't get the first one. I get the second one.
Yeah.
I got lucky. I didn't expect 4 responses, but I've known people that applied for years. And if you stay at it, eventually you'll get it. You just can't get frustrated with the process. And I do actually, if anyone's interested, if you go on, it's called TEDx.com, you can download a free formula that I've put together to help make this easier for
Oh,
you.
I should probably put that in the chat. GetOnTEDx.com.
Yes.
Is that what you said? GetOnTEDx.com. I think that's going to be useful. Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, because really there's three things they're looking for. They want to know, assuming you have the big idea, why are you the expert on this big idea? What problem are you solving? And why do we need to hear about it now? And if you can tie all that in, you have a really good pitch.
Fantastic. I'm gonna definitely look at that. Thanks for that. For anyone listening now and maybe listening later, if you've got a question or a comment, please feel free to put that in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. Dara's here to answer any questions around confidence, fear, and just going after what you need to go after so that you can really reach your potential in life. And I'm a big advocate for people achieving the things that they are what they've been made to achieve really in this life. So if we go back a little bit to confidence, you spoke about your corporate career and the experiences there that eventually led you to look at confidence and think, right, this is something that can be developed. So it's, I guess, the same question people ask about leadership and entrepreneurship. Is confidence something you're born with, or is it something that you can learn and develop? And I know people ask that about leaders, they ask that about entrepreneurs. So are you saying then that confidence is something that you can develop and you're not necessarily born with it? Tell us.
Well, that's an interesting question. Well, so I believe we are born with it, because if you think of the little children that run around confident, they don't care what their hair looks like. They don't care if they're dribbling, right? We have it when we're younger. If you go back and remember when you're younger, you probably felt pretty confident. But then what tends to happen, and this certainly happened to me, is somebody else starts judging you and you start hearing things. Maybe it's from a teacher who says, oh, you're not a good writer, or your parents get mad. Why are you getting C's? And all of a sudden you start, I'm not good enough. And then we do it to ourselves. We compare ourselves. I'm not as pretty as this one, or I'm not as smart as this one. I'm not as clean as my brother, whatever. And this comparison really starts chipping away at our self-esteem. But we have it inside of us. Like, of course, we're born confident because we need that to survive. We can't just be, if we're not, we're just going to fall apart. So we have to have that, and it's in there, but we start to push it down and cover it up with all these layers of things that we have to now peel away. And it's interesting, for me, I was shy, but maybe not everybody has that as their thing, right? Everybody has something different. But on the other side of that was exactly what I need to do, was to be a speaker. So I always say to people, what is your biggest fear? What are you most afraid of? Because I believe your biggest gift or your biggest purpose is hidden behind that fear. And if you can challenge yourself to step into it, then you're going to reveal something. And it's scary, I admit, it's a little scary stepping out, but the reward is so much greater. My life is so much better now that I'm doing what I do, as opposed to when I look back of how much that I wasn't involved in anything. So to step into it is definitely worth it. And maybe it's having the assertiveness to speak up at work, or I don't know, go give a presentation and you're really nervous. If you could just step into it a little bit, you'll find that you'll get there, and you have to just believe in it and not worry. Stop the comparison. Stop judging yourself and letting other people judge you.
It's really powerful, because I have a daughter who's she's 12, and even from her, I can see that almost like transition that you describe, where as children we don't seem to really be bothered what people think. Like my daughter was definitely like that. Like she was larger than life and wasn't shy and would just go after what she wants to get to. But there's definitely an age. And with her, I think it's probably around 9 or 10 when it's like self-consciousness just hits.
Absolutely.
Like, what are people thinking? Oh, how do I look? Oh, does that look dumb? Oh, that's silly. Oh, is that stupid? And they just suddenly they start judging themselves. And I've seen it in her. I started reflecting on my journey, and you may have a memory of this. Do you remember that point in time when suddenly you realize that not everyone likes you? I remember being traumatized by that. Like,
Mm.
being obviously at home, parents, everyone's lovely. Your mom loves you no matter what. Everyone's like, oh, you're so cute, pulling your cheeks. And then suddenly you step out. It could be primary school. It could be in the playground, and somebody says, you're ugly, or I
Yeah.
don't like you. You're just like, what? And suddenly you just realize that not everyone likes me. Oh my goodness. And it changes you. Do you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Oh, you're spot on. Especially for girls, young girls, that adolescent period definitely is when that transition stops, of the confidence of, I'm doing anything, I don't care, I'm going to climb trees, and then all of a sudden my friends aren't doing that, and oops, I better not do that. And it's really sad when you see that transition. I mean, truthfully, for me, it was like that my whole life. I never had I just was always the outsider. I was the wallflower. So it wasn't like one moment, it was every day. So that was just the way my life was. But I know what you mean for young women, that it's like literally you'll see that transition right around middle school age.
Mhm.
I'm sure young boys go through it too. I work with women for so long that I know that for sure. And we start to watch. I mean, there's been studies done where a mom will go into a room of boys and girls, like teens, and she'll say something like, are you guys hungry? Do you want food? And all the boys will be like, yeah, get us food. They just answer right away. They know what they want. They confidently assert what they want. But the girls don't. They look around to see, are we hungry? What, are you guys hungry? Because I'm not going to say I'm hungry unless it's this validation, and it's crazy. And we take this into our adulthood. You may be at a corporate meeting where you want to speak up, but you're thinking, does this sound right? Let me check in. I need that nonverbal cue. And it's interesting how all these little things start to add up. And what happens is it really strips away from our confidence, because if we stop worrying about what people are thinking and that judgment, and really believe in ourselves and bring it anyway, bring what you need to say it fully. Don't hesitate. You sometimes see this too, where people start to speak up. Oh, I want to share. Well, no, it's not a good idea. Forget it. And it's like, why do we do that? Like, it drives me crazy, because we have to honor who we are and let the world know that we have all this inside of us.
Or we apologize before we even say it. We just start to apologize.
It makes me crazy.
Like, oh dear. And sometimes, I mean, even though I'm far more, I guess, conscious of that, and I have grown in confidence over the years, sometimes I do catch myself doing that. I'm like, why have I apologized? I don't understand why I've done that. And I think that self-awareness is a key part of growing in confidence. Would you agree that just becoming aware of your habits and those areas in your life where you are lacking confidence, it's probably a first step, because then you become aware that, okay, this is an area that I should probably look at. I'm not sure why I behave like this in this scenario. Let's look at this. Let's get a little bit deeper.
That's exactly the work I do. I have a program called PTC, Positive Transformational Confidence. And the very first thing I say when I work with women is, you are perfectly perfect the way you are, but you probably along the way have developed some bad habits. So let's just tweak them a little bit. And when you start to notice those, it doesn't mean you're not doing it to beat yourself up. It's just going, oh, I didn't realize when I talk, my hands fling wildly, or I always start a sentence with sorry. I don't want to take up too much time. Like just these little things. Let's just tweak it, and it'll over time develop your confidence. Even if you don't believe it, what you're doing is you're starting to get the wheels in motion, so other people see you as more confident.
Yeah.
And then you start to believe it yourself.
That's powerful. I wanted to touch on the role of confidence and being able to flip your fear when it comes to the business world. So just a shout out to all my business people who are maybe listening now or listening later. So when it comes to leading a business, so I'm a business leader. I've got 2 small businesses, and I'm very much a leader in the world that I operate in. And confidence plays a big role. But I find that there's a difference between truly confident inside of you and appearing to be confident, right? And I wonder what your thoughts are around that, for people who are leading, especially through difficult times and quite uncertain, unpredictable times, as we have been over the last kind of 13, 14 months. What are some of your thoughts around that, actually being confident and appearing to be confident?
Well, for people who are struggling, if you're really struggling with that inner confidence, or maybe even imposter syndrome, that's a big buzzword today. start with the outside if you can, because that'll at least give you some tools to begin with. Start with the body language, start with the way you speak slower and articulate your words. And that'll help you, remind you to calm down and really center yourself. But the inner confidence generally takes people a little bit longer, because we want to get all that negative stuff that's been piled on for years out of there. And so there's, when I work with people, we go through, where did that come from? Why do you believe it? And is it even true? Because chances are we just started believing it and it's not true. Because when we really think of our lives and our potential, it's unlimited. And we're just putting these self-limiting beliefs, or putting our own limits on things that it's crazy, because it came from nowhere sometimes. Like, I know it came from other people, but if that person, are we living for other people, or are we living for ourselves? So when the inner confidence matches the outer, then you have the real power. So you just start with baby steps. Maybe it's saying something positive about yourself. Maybe it's thinking about your body language when you're in a meeting. Just start small and let those little areas start to fill you. And when you feel good at that and you've mastered that, then you just keep adding on to it. You don't want to try to do it all at once. It's going to be overwhelming. And then we fall up. If it doesn't work, we feel like a failure. But just little things. What can you do? Can you start speaking up at a meeting if you haven't been speaking up? Can you push yourself to that next level position, even if you're a little scared? And like all these little things that we hold ourselves back, you have to push yourself to take that step. Because here's the thing, okay? Nobody is coming. Nobody's coming to help you do it. You have to do it yourself. When we're little, we have our parents to say, why don't you go make a friend? And maybe if you had a great teacher, they'll say, yeah, why don't you submit your essay in the writing contest? But as adults, nobody's coming to tell us to get up and speak up at that meeting, or maybe raise your hand and say, I'll do the presentation next week. You have to be the one to do it. And that's the biggest kick in the butt that it requires, is to get yourself going, is to realize you have to do it for yourself. Yeah.
It's hard being a grown-up, as they say, because at the end of the day, we take responsibility for ourselves, or we should anyway. It's really interesting what you're saying, because I think in terms of that whole transition from truly feeling the confidence inside, and appearing to be confident, often there's a bit of a disconnect. And I think that's where the phrase "fake it till you make it," I think is the phrase that people talk about. So I suppose it's a little bit that, but changing some little things, like you were saying. It could be body language, it could be your, how you speak and the tone of voice, the way your posture, even, right?
Yes.
Sort of shoulder slumped, it's you're up, looking people in the eye when you're having a conversation. Those kind of things can probably really help around confidence.
Absolutely. Little tweaks like that.
Yeah. So when you work with people, what does that look like in terms of, if someone is listening right now and is thinking, right, I could do with a confidence coach. I recognize these things in myself. I can see how it's kind of standing in the way, standing in the way of what I want to achieve for myself. What are the things that you can do with this person, and how does that look?
Yeah, well, I do. Actually, I have masterminds, which are great for people who want to be in a supportive group. We have, for corporate women, masterminds that I offer for women only, but really powerful supportive group to bounce ideas off each other. I also do private coaching, men and women. If someone doesn't want to be in a group and really wants to dig in, that's probably the way to get the fastest results. And then separately, I do for people who want to push themselves to get on that TED stage, speech coaching and TEDx training. And everything I do is based on positivity. PTC is all about positivity, believing that you have it all within you already. And if there's something you need to learn and develop, then we go to that competency and build that up. But it starts with, what do you believe about yourself? It's literally like an 8 to 10 step process, and it's very thorough and it takes you through. But I'm all about making it simple, manageable, anybody can do it type of thing. And I'm literally the poster child, because if I could do it, anybody could do it. Take yourself to the point where, what is that big dream you have inside of you? What is that big goal you want to get to, and get yourself there? Professional speaking, TEDx speaking, confidence coaching, all this stuff I'm doing wasn't on my radar. I was not just shy girl. I was the girl who didn't like talking. Okay. So that doesn't make sense. But when you realize that you can develop the confidence that you need to get to that next level, anything is possible, and you'll push yourself to the biggest level you've ever seen.
You've talked a lot about, how your life was like at the start and the big transition you've made. Could you speak about certain, I suppose, the benefits, like what life is now like and how it's so different from what it was before, and some of the opportunities and benefits that has come as a result of you working on your confidence and being in the position that you are now?
Wow. It's so different. Like friends and even family members don't even recognize me because I'm able to put myself in situations that I wouldn't even consider. I wouldn't even have done an interview like this because I was so much a hider. I didn't want to put myself out there. But when you really believe in the work you're doing, the words you're saying, and the purpose that you're here for, you don't mind sharing it with whomever. Now opportunities are coming up, podcasts, TV appearances, articles, or like, here's the difference, okay? In the past, I had to go find clients. I had to go work for, get people to find me as an entrepreneur. Now, I don't have to, they're coming to me. You know what I mean? It's just when I always say to my clients, let the confidence do the work for you. So for a corporate person, literally the transition that'll happen for you, if you're someone who feels invisible, talked over, maybe you're a woman in a male-dominated industry, your voice isn't heard, the transition that will begin to happen is people notice you, they respect you, and you will see where they come to you now for ideas. They look at you as the expert, whereas before they would kind of like talk over you. People will respect you based on how you appear. They will see your worthiness when you believe it. So it's definitely a huge transition, and my life is so different, and it can happen for anyone.
Wow. So in terms of, I suppose, business leaders or women just wanting to, get the promotion that they've always wanted at their job, the confidence can go such a long way. So like you said, instead of you always going out and looking for customers or even begging for those little projects here and there, suddenly you exude this confidence and people are actually coming to you. So for me,
you attract it.
Yeah, it's such a good reason to just go for what you've always wanted and not live your life kind of wishing you had tried, wishing you had more confidence. We've got a great comment from Caroline, who I know. Hi, Caroline. So thanks for the inspiration, Dara. I'm working on my confidence every day. Caroline is an entrepreneur, an amazing lady, based in Aberdeen. Thanks for joining us, Caroline. Fantastic. So if someone wants to find out more about what you do, are you happy for people to follow you on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
and have you
definitely.
do you have other channels that maybe people can find you and get more of your content around confidence and flipping your fear?
Absolutely. If you go to daraconnolly.com, there's lots of free PDFs. There's I do video links, video emails that I'll send with lots of confidence tips. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Clubhouse. And I just want to share this little motto that I always say, because this may resonate with people. I always say, I help you speak up to be heard, get paid what you deserve, and kick fear to the curb.
Oh, wow.
So if you think, oh, that's me, then just reach out.
Amazing. Thanks so much. I believe in what you're doing. And, as a woman running a business and knowing the value of confidence and how fear can often stand in the way, I want to say a big thank you for the work that you've done over the past, 17 years for women and men in your community. So thank you very much. Thanks everyone for watching. And stay tuned for next time. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.